Love. It's a tricky business, which is why being forever alone should be one of any sensible person's life goals. But there's always a few soppy gits out there touting the love conquers all nonsense. And to those people, I say, pshaw. Love and tragedy go hand in hand. Take Romeo and Juliet, Antony and Cleopatra, or Chipotle and your stomach lining. But doomed romances aren't just confined to the pages of history. We can find plenty of examples of star-crossed lovers and tale that we definitely shouldn't have chased in video games. Here are 9 romantic flings in games that would end in disaster. As prospective mates go, Alyx Vance checks all of the boxes. She's attractive, witty, intelligent, brave, knows how to use an arsenal of weapons. You'd happily take her home to meet your mum or into a throng of combine. The thorn in the ointment is you, the player. Gordon can't talk now or ever Freeman. The basis of any lasting relationship is communication, and Freeman is essentially a glorified mannequin. Neither use nor ornament, he couldn't even save her from getting stabbed to almost death. If it wasn't for the Vorts, she'd be dead. And let's not forget about the huge age gap. When Gordon was at Black Mesa in Half-Life, Alyx was a slip of a girl. His being in status made the discrepancy less drastic, but it's kind of creepy if he met her as a child, and romance blossomed when they met again as adults. He's boring, doesn't talk, and is possibly in the midst of a midlife crisis, chasing young women that are far too young and way out of his league. Once her hero worship of Freeman wears off, she'll realise she could do much better, like finding a man who can utter at least one syllable and didn't know her before she hit puberty. It could only end in tears. Kaiden Alenko was near and dear to my Commander Shepard's heart before he ripped it out and stomped all over it. Somewhere between the awkward flirting and leaving Ashley to die in his place in Mass Effect, Alenko fans knew it was meant to be. Popping your clogs at the beginning of Mass Effect 2 put the brakes on the romance somewhat, but if you stayed faithful like I did, hoping for a reunion, you get one. It does not go well. Swooping in to save the colony on Horizon and Kaiden again, he discovers that you're not dead, you're alive and standing right there. Cue the hugs and shower of kisses. Oh no. The rest of your encounters with him prove that he's more concerned with doing his job than reuniting with Shepard. So when he finally comes crawling back to join the Normandy, if you have any self-respect, you'll tell him to get lost. Unless you got Garrus to kill him, which is what he deserves. Screw you, Alenko. On the plus side, he drove me into the arms of Garrus, who we all know is the real MVP. He's caring, doesn't give you grief for not being a corpse, which is just the bare minimum required in a relationship, and is a sexy alien to boot. So thank you for being a complete arse, Kaiden. Now, if you'll excuse me, Garrus and I have got some serious calibrating to do.
Shepard, look at us. This can't end well.
Going from one man with thinly veiled anger issues to another, Tim is a short chap with a shock of orange hair, so one might argue that he has a lot to be grumpy about. On a quest to save the princess from a larger, much tougher looking romantic rival, his story resembles that of a certain mustachioed plumber who also can't seem to take a hint. She wants Bowser, Mario, get lost. Outside of the atomic bomb narrative, Tim is chasing the princess to rescue her from a buff-looking knight. Except he isn't. The princess has had just about enough of Tim and his antics, and contrary to his narcissistic delusions, is actually trying to run away into the arms of the waiting knight. In the face of subtle hints like the back of the princess's head getting further and further away in a cloud of dust, Tim just isn't getting it. There's no hope for him. Julian Luxembourg sits down after making dinner for a date, but little does he know that he's in for a long wait because she's never going to show up. And if we were the elusive Meiko, neither would we, frankly. Unfortunately, we're an invisible hostage seeing the world through Julian's eyes, privy to his innermost thoughts that just won't stop. He's edging closer to 30, is still thirsting after nubile 20-year-olds, and his relationship with alcohol seems to be about the most substantive one he's got going on in his life right now. But he's well-spoken and spouts poetry every now and then, so in his mind, that makes him pure catnip to women. While Meiko could be lying dead in the middle of the road after being hit by a bus, Julian is getting sozzled and gobbling down her dinner, trying to fathom how he's still alone while thinking about the women in his life and barely keeping it holstered. Even if Meiko is roadkill, she's had a lucky escape.
Meiko has no idea what she's missing. She's probably just dancing.
Solas would be significantly more appealing if he had hair, but if you can look past the glare from his egg-shaped noggin, he's not the worst the Herald of Andraste could do. After flirting shamelessly with the Inquisitor, going from hot to cold like an ice-cold bucket of water to the face, Solas disappears at the end of the game, without so much as a perfunctory sex scene to remember him by. And just when we were putting the pieces of our shattered hearts back together, he pops back to grind it into dust in the Trespasser DLC, where we learn he's not just any old elf, he's the Dreadwolf, the Alvan equivalent of Loki, an ancient god. Solas joins Kaiden in a menagerie of men that we now despise in BioWare's character ranks. One of the writers over there has got to be moonlighting as a proctologist because boy howdy do they know their buttholes.
I'm sorry.
Essentially the same story as Double Dragon, Neon sees things ramped up a bit with the robotic Skullmageddon as the final boss and kidnapper of Marian, rather than Big Willie. When Marian is whisked away, her beau Billy and his loyal brother Jimmy set off to rescue her, because the bond of brotherly love means never shying away from a beating. Marian is rescued and Skullmageddon escapes through a portal. Phew, what a relief that's over. Time to pack up and get out of here, or not. Rather than walking off into the sunset, Marian insists that the twins jump through the magic portal she summoned to finish the job. Billy and Jimmy aren't exactly the brightest bulbs in the box. You can't fight your way through swarms of henchmen without losing a filament or two, so they hop through, no questions asked. Questions like, is Marian a witch? Could she have escaped whenever she wanted to? What exactly is she playing at? They return as a pair of palette-swapped robots, having lost their mortal bodies travelling through her wormhole of love. But now at least the nightmare is over and they can all go home. Oh dear. Not content to just leave with her boyfriend and have a hot bath to get over what was a pretty crummy day, she instead puts her affections up for grabs and has a fraternal duo fight for her amusement. Is there no end to this minx's bloodlust? Marian is a straight-up psycho harbouring magical powers and super strength, and she is not to be trifled with. Dropping to the floor and playing dead is the only real way to come out a winner here.
Oh man, not this again.
Crack pilot Juno Eclipse is a love interest of the troubled Starkiller in Star Wars The Force Unleashed and its sequel, which is bad news for her because if the Star Wars universe has taught us anything, it's that getting romantically involved with a Jedi can only lead to inadvertent incest or death. Both games present the player with a light and dark side choice at their climatic endings, and as you'd expect, the dark side ending involves a lot of people dying, Juno Eclipse being one of them. The couple is star-crossed from the very beginning. Juno is better off out of it because being dead is never the ideal outcome from a passionate fling, and Starkiller will always be vulnerable because his feelings for her will be his undoing. As long as they even entertain the notion of hooking up, they're just a liability to each other.
Goodbye, Juno.
To say Geralt and Triss's relationship is complicated is somewhat of an understatement. Triss can be pursued as a romance option in the game, along with almost anything else in a skirt that doesn't fall into the generic peasant category. And if your Geralt is anything like mine, he gets around. Big time. I'd like to say I slept my way across a continent in the hopes of unlocking an achievement, but where Geralt's sword points, I follow. Meanwhile, Triss is of no help whatsoever to an amnesiac witcher. A sorceress who knows both Geralt and Yennefer, she keeps it zipped, indulging their dalliance instead of sitting him down with a cup of tea and telling him what's what. If you were foolish enough to pick Triss as your love interest, the pair are in for a lifetime of betrayal and deceit.
I love you.
Alan Wake is a writer, frustrated at his own creative impotence, so of course he does what any rational adult would do and starts picking fights with his wife because there's nothing like a good tantrum to get the creative juices flowing. But when that inexplicably doesn't work, they pack their bags and nip off to the creepy town of Bright Falls for a short break. It's all downhill from there with more marital strife, and Alyx is kidnapped after Alan storms off in the midst of yet another tantrum. As penance, he spends the rest of the game trying to find his wife and ends up rescuing her at the cost of his own freedom. On the plus side, Alyx is probably due a fat life insurance check, and his books will fly off the shelves now everyone thinks he's dead. This is one relationship that should never have made it past a fling into marriage, and the proof is in the pudding.
Alice? Alice!
Don't get us wrong, we're not saying all relationships end in disaster, just most of them. So don't bother wasting years of your life cultivating them like a precious flower, because they'll inevitably wither and die, like the love in your now cold, dead heart. Let us know which romantic flings in games have ended in disaster for you in the comments, like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to Logitech G for more weekly content. Thanks for watching.